Struggling to get that polished pro level guitar sound at home? You're not alone. After 5 years of refining my process, I've cracked the code. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing my 5-step system that will transform your home recordings into studio quality tracks. Plus, I got 3 bonus tips that will take your guitar DIs to the next level. We're going to cover everything from preparing your guitar to optimizing your DAW settings. By the end, you'll have a solid framework for creating pro level tracks every time you hit record. Let's get started. Alright, so you may start by thinking that you're ready to start recording, and you might just be tempted to plug in and go. But hold on, have you prepared your guitar properly? This is a crucial first step that can make or break your recording session. Think about it. Would you expect a race car to perform at its best without a tune-up? Your guitar is no different. A well-prepared instrument is the foundation of a great recording. Let's start with the strings. Ask yourself, when was the last time you changed them? If you can't remember, it's probably time for a fresh set. New strings give you a brighter, more consistent tone, exactly what you need for high-quality DI tracks. As a rule of thumb, change the strings as soon as you notice the brightness is dulling. At a minimum, put on a new set for every song that you record. But fresh strings are just the beginning. Have you checked your guitar's intonation recently? Proper intonation ensures your guitar plays in tune across the entire fretboard. While you're at it, lower your string action as much as possible without causing fret buzz. This will make your playing easier and cleaner. Now let's talk about another aspect of guitar prep: dampening. Those open strings above the nut and below the tuning pegs, they can cause unwanted noise in your recordings. Here's the pro tip: use tape or a fret wrap to mute the strings. If you're playing a Les Paul style guitar, pay attention to the strings behind the bridge. These can also create unwanted resonance. Apply the same dampening principle here to ensure a clean, focused sound. This simple trick can significantly improve your guitar recordings. Got a guitar with a tremolo system? Don't forget about those springs. They can vibrate and muddy up your tone. A bit of tape or some cotton balls can work wonders here. By taking these steps to prepare your guitar, you're setting yourself up for recording success. A well set up instrument, it not only sounds better but also plays better, allowing you to focus on your performance rather than fighting with your equipment. Remember, great recordings start with a great source sounds, and that begins with the guitar. Now that your guitar is set up and ready to go, let's talk about a setup that many guitarists skip: mapping out your song. You might think it sounds unnecessary, but trust me, it's a game changer for efficient tracking. Let me show you how it works. Open up your DAW and start by breaking down your song into its main sections: intro, verse, chorus, bridge, and so on. Use markers to label these sections clearly. If there's variations or different endings within these sections, mark those too. Pre-planning sections facilitates easy navigation and lets you quickly locate the parts of the song, which is particularly useful during editing and mixing stages. It's like having that GPS on your recording session at all times. Now that we've mapped out our song, it's time to dive into the digital realm. Think of our DAW as the control center for the entire recording process. Just like a pilot needs to set up their cockpit before takeoff, you need to optimize your DAW before you start recording. You might be tempted to just create one track and start playing, but that's not how the pros do it. For rhythm guitars, you want to create 2 tracks, one left and one right. This gives you that wide, powerful sound that's crucial for metal. For lead guitars, you have options. If they were written as harmonies, use one left and one right. If not, a single center mono track will do the job. And for solos, stick to one center mono track unless you're going for some special effect. Now let's talk about the technical stuff. You've probably seen terms like sample rate and bit depth thrown around. But what do they really mean for your recordings? Here's the simple truth. The industry standard is 44.1K sample rate and 24-bit depth. This combination gives you the high quality audio that you get on a CD. But we're not done yet. There's one more setting that can make or break your recording: buffer size. You might be wondering, what is buffer size and why should I care? Well, it's all about latency. Too much latency can throw off your timing and ruin a perfect take. So here's the pro tip: set your buffer size to the absolute lowest setting you can without clicks and pops to minimize latency. This will give you the most responsive feel when you're playing and help you nail those tight rhythm and intricate solos. Now that we've optimized our DAW, it's time to focus on the heart of our recording setup: the interface and its amp sims. You might think that this might be as simple as plugging in and turning up the volume, but there's more to it than that. Getting this step right can make the difference between a muddy and amateur sounding track and a crisp professional recording. Let's start with your interface. Many home recorders make the mistake of cranking up the input gain to -6 dB on their interface, thinking it will give them a stronger, better signal. But here's the thing: your interface's preamp can color your sound, and not always in a good way, especially with budget interfaces. Pushing the gain too high can introduce unwanted distortion and coloration. Instead, try this approach. Lower your input gain on the interface all the way down. Then increase the input gain on your amp sim. This digital gain on your amp sim doesn't add any coloration to your sound and allows you to hit the front end at just the right level for an accurate response. I've also linked a video and a spreadsheet below for more detail on this subject. Now let's talk about your amp sim settings. You might be tempted to use your practice tone for tracking than what you plan to use in the final mix, but this can be a big mistake. When you play through a specific tone, you naturally adjust your playing style to suit it. If you track with one tone and then switch to another for the final mix, your performance might not fit as well as you had hoped. Ensure that the tone you are using to track is the tone that you plan on using with your song or album. This is because when you play through that tone, you'll play in a way that's suitable for that particular tone. Finally, let's address the common misconception about gain levels. Many guitarists, especially in metal, crank up the gain for a heavier sound, but in the recording world, less can often be more. Less gain equals more clarity and punch. Set the gain lower on the Amp Sims amplifier section than you would on the live scenario. By following these steps, you'll be setting up your interface and amp sims for the optimal recording quality. Remember, the goal is to capture a clean and accurate signal that will give you the most flexibility when it comes to the mix. Now that we've set up our gear, it's time to tackle the most crucial part of the process: actually recording the guitar tracks. You might think this is as simple as hitting record and playing through the song, but there's a bit more to it than that if you want truly professional results. Let's start with the question many guitarists ask: how can I get my tracks as tight as possible? The answer lies in breaking down your recordings to smaller chunks. Instead of trying to nail the entire song in one take, focus on recording smaller sections. This approach allows you to perfect each part of the song without being overwhelmed. For rhythm guitar parts, try recording in 4 to 8 bar chunks. If you're working on a more technical section, you might even want to go as small as 2 to 4 bars. Lead parts often require a bit more room to breathe, so 8 to 16 bar sections usually work well. However, remember, these are just guidelines. Adjust based on your skill level and the complexity of the part. Here's another pro tip: get both the left and right rhythm guitars recorded at the same time when moving through sections. This ensures that both sides of your guitar mix are perfectly in tune and tight with each other. Now, you might be wondering about editing. While it's tempting to rely on editing to fix mistakes, it's not the best approach. Instead, focus on getting the best possible take during the recording process. You must prioritize nailing the take to the best of your ability to minimize editing. Be incredibly picky about performance and tuning. That being said, don't be afraid to use some punch-in recording techniques to your advantage. If you got a solid take with just 1 or 2 off notes, it's okay to punch in those specific notes rather than re-recording the entire section. This saves time while maintaining the integrity of your performance. Lastly, let's talk about repeated sections. If you recorded a perfect chorus and it repeats later in the song with no changes, don't waste time by re-recording it. Simply copy-paste that section. This not only saves time but ensures consistency throughout the track. Remember, the goal is to create tight and professional sounding guitar tracks. By breaking your recording into manageable chunks, being critical of the performance, and using smart editing techniques, you'll be well on your way to achieving that pro-level sound right from your home studio. Now that we've covered the 5 main steps for recording guitar DI tracks, let's dive into some bonus tips that could take your recordings to the next level. Our first bonus tip might surprise you: tuning after every take, or at least every other take. This practice can make a huge difference in your overall recording quality. Why? Because even small tuning discrepancies can add up over time, leading to a final recording that sounds off. If you're doing short takes, tuning after every other take might be sufficient. For longer sections, tuning after every take is ideal. The key is to be proactive about tuning rather than trying to fix pitch issues in post-production. Think about it this way: as you play, your strings stretch slightly. The temperature in your room might change. Even the intensity of your playing can affect the tuning. These small shifts might not seem noticeable in the moment, but they can become apparent when you listen back to your full recording. Frequent tuning becomes even more critical when you're tracking both left and right rhythm guitars at the same time. You want both sides to be perfectly in sync and pitch matched. This attention to detail is what separates the amateur recordings from the professional ones. Let's talk about a game-changing technique: tuning to the attack of the note. When you tune to the attack of the note instead of the sustain, you're setting yourself up for a tighter, more precise recording. Here's why it matters. When tuning to the sustain of a note and then playing, the note struck in this manner will go sharp for a split second, making the tuning of the overall track sharp. Now that we've covered tuning to the attack, let's talk about a technique that can save you tons of time: editing as you record. This approach can streamline your workflow and help you nail those tight, pro-level tracks faster than ever. When you play a section well but it's slightly offbeat, you don't have to scrap the whole take. Instead, use slip editing to align it perfectly with the grid on your DAW. This technique lets you keep the flow of the recording without pausing for every little mistake. But there's a catch. No amount of slip editing can save a bad performance. You still need to aim for the best take possible. This method works best when you split your workflow into small, manageable sections. We covered a lot of ground in this video, from guitar prep to editing techniques. Let's recap the 5 key steps and the bonus tips that will transform your home recordings into studio quality tracks. First, it all starts with a well-prepped guitar. Fresh strings, proper intonation, and dampened resonances set the foundation. Then map out your song for efficient tracking. Optimize your DAW settings, focusing on the right sample rate and buffer size. Then set up your interface and amp sims correctly, keeping the gain levels in check. When you're tracking, break your song into small sections and aim for the best possible performances. And don't forget our bonus tips: tune frequently, focus on the attack of the note when tuning, and edit as you record. These techniques might seem small, but they make a big difference in your final sound. By following this systematic approach, you're crafting a professional quality track right from your home studio. Catch you guys in the next one.